To exist in diet culture means that you've been told that eating for comfort is wrong. And I know if you're in a situation right now where every time something upsetting happens to you, you end up eating, you are probably ready to stop comfort eating. And I want to talk about some of the nuances here, because diet culture really demonizes the experience of comfort eating, which doesn't really allow us a lot of space and opportunity to explore what could be happening for you. So we're going to dive into all of that and more, and I'm going to offer you some ideas and questions so that you can better explore what's happening when you find yourself comfort eating. You definitely want to take a listen to this. But before we dive into things, my name is Catherine Metzelar. I'm a registered dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor, here to help you create peace with food and your body so that it takes up less headspace and you can live a more abundant life. When it comes to comfort eating in this culture, there are endless amounts of shoulds. You shouldn't be eating for comfort. You should only be eating to fuel your body. You should fill in the blank. Honestly, it's endless, and it leaves you feeling confused about how you're supposed to nourish yourself. Add to that the discomfort and confusion that you have when you find yourself eating for comfort, and you get stuck in these cycles of feeling like you're doing something wrong because you can't figure out why you're comfort eating, and then you eat in the context of wanting comfort, and then you feel a lot of shame and guilt about it, and you just keep getting stuck in that cycle. So I know that if you're in that position, you want to find a way out. And I want to talk about the reasons why diet culture demonizing comfort eating actually makes the experience of comfort eating worse. First, there is nothing wrong with comfort eating. It is a normal, natural human experience to use food as a way to soothe and comfort yourself. In fact, when we are children, this is something that we learn from a very young age. We are comforted by food, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want that to be our starting off point, because there's nothing wrong with comfort eating, and there's nothing wrong with you for comfort eating. The second thing that I want to add though, and here's the kicker, diet culture, and specifically dieting and restricting, makes the experience of comfort eating worse for you, and here's why. It makes it worse for you because in the context of restricting, say you go on a diet, you start cutting out foods, it takes a lot of mental effort, as well as it being super taxing on your body. And so your body's freaking out, and it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I feel threatened, this isn't okay. You're thinking about and exerting effort all the time. It takes a lot of work, mental work and also physical work, and it's very demanding and taxing on your body. So oftentimes folks can sustain that up until the point that something happens that disrupts their ability to be able to do it. Let's think about a common scenario. Maybe you get a scary email from your boss, and immediately you feel distressed about it. Something happened that they want to talk to you about. They put a meeting on your calendar, and you start to feel a lot of emotions. So what was once possible in the context of having no distress becomes virtually impossible or really difficult. In addition to this, when you are restricting food, it makes food very exciting. Let me repeat that. When you restrict food, like going on diets, participating in lifestyle programs, it makes food more exciting. This happens through the process of the release of dopamine that we experience in the context of pleasurable foods, but that's amplified in the context of restricting food. So we restrict a food, we eat it, our brain's like, whoo, and it releases even more dopamine. So think about it. You're feeling distressed, you want some comfort, and you're restricting. So not only is it difficult because of the distress to maintain, for example, the restrictive diet, but also food is very exciting and very pleasurable, increasingly in the context of restriction. So the combination of these two things that happen as a result of diet culture and dieting makes comfort eating worse, makes you more inclined to want to comfort eat when something distressing happens for you. If you currently are experiencing comfort eating, you've likely been told that you're out of control, that you need to restrict more, that you need to cut out certain foods, that you can't bring certain foods in your house, and it's all just your fault and you're essentially making it up. I don't believe that. I don't think that that's true. I think that there's a lot more going on for you. In addition to the other pieces that I mentioned, food being really exciting in the context of restriction and it being difficult to maintain a diet in the context of any kind of distress or difficult emotion coming up, it also may be that you don't necessarily have other tools to navigate, comfort, soothe, manage yourself when difficult emotions come up for you. So you want to stop comfort eating. Now, what do? How do you take steps towards decreasing the experience of comfort eating if that's something that you want? Because let's be real, if you are comfort eating all the time and you feel like you're stuck in these cycles that you can't get out of, and you feel out of control around food every time something challenging, difficult, or goodness, even exciting happens for you, let's talk about some steps that you can take in order to decrease the experience of comfort eating. The first step to reduce the frequency of comfort eating is to not go on another diet. Don't start restricting, don't do another lifestyle plan. This tends to make things worse for most people. The second step is to take steps towards normalizing the experience of comfort eating. And I know this one is particularly difficult, but there's nothing wrong with you. I want to repeat that as many times as you need to hear it. There is nothing wrong with you if you want to eat in the context of needing comfort. That needs to be an option so that you can normalize the experience and help yourself get out of feeling stuck in cycles of shame and guilt after you're done. If you can normalize the experience, this is often helpful so that while you're doing it, you can recognize it and afterwards you can move on from it. 3, notice what kinds of foods you're eating in the context of comfort eating. Are these foods that you normally give yourself unconditional permission to have? Or are these foods that you're restricting, that you deem bad or unhealthy, and that only show up in the context of you wanting to comfort eat? This is an opportunity if you start to realize, which is very common, if you start to realize that those foods are the foods that you think are unhealthy or bad for you or that you limit, you can start challenging yourself outside of comfort eating to include more of those foods so that they're not extra exciting when you are feeling something distressing, and also so that you don't feel out of control around those foods. 4, check in with yourself and see if you are nourishing yourself adequately and consistently enough. It's also very common that if we're not eating enough food and we're not eating consistently enough, that again, in the context of distress, discomfort, wanting comfort, our body's like, great, let me make sure that we get enough food in this context. So the best way to set yourself up for decreasing the experience of comfort eating is to assure that you always, first and foremost, are getting enough meals and enough snacks throughout the day. And the last thing I want you to get curious about is, how do you feel about the experience of comfort eating? This often gives you a lot of information. Are you judging yourself for the experience of comfort eating? What are you saying to yourself before you start comfort eating, during comfort eating, after comfort eating? Is there any possibility to offer yourself compassion in that context? And compassion doesn't have to be Pollyanna or sound like a cheerleader. It can just be as simple as, I'm having a hard time right now, this is feeling really difficult, and comfort eating is feeling good, and it's one of the only options that I'm aware of. And one last additional thing that I want to add is that you likely would benefit from exploring other ways to soothe and comfort yourself outside of food if you don't have that. You of course can do this by getting one-on-one support from a mental health counselor or from a clinician or a coach to navigate and create a really solid list of things that you can pull from and do in the context of you needing and wanting comfort, or when you feel something that's distressing. In summary, there is nothing wrong with comfort eating. There is so much nuance to this conversation, and diet culture really makes you out to be the person that's responsible. It makes you think that there's something wrong that you're doing, or there's something wrong with you for eating for comfort, when in reality, we as humans eat for comfort. This is a very common, normal, natural experience. We get ourselves into tricky situations when that's the only option that we have, and it feels terrible to constantly be stuck in cycles of comfort eating and not feel like you can get out of it. So I hope that some of the questions that I've proposed can help you explore it, and I also hope that some of the things that I've offered for you to give a try also help you. Know that there's no one right way to eat. Know that it takes time to navigate these different pieces, and know that engaging in another diet or starting to restrict again will only make the experience of comfort eating worse for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Click like and click subscribe, share it with people that you know, and if you want more, check out the free resource that I have in the show notes about how you can create peace with food if you are afraid of gaining weight, which is a very common fear when working towards healing your relationship with food. And I will see you back here next week.